It was a cold Tuesday morning in Washington, but the heat inside the Supreme Court chamber could have melted steel. Elon Musk stood at the marble podium, face impassive, fingers tightly gripped on the edge. This wasn't a press conference. There were no product unveilings or meme tweets here. This was the final battle, a constitutional war over whether the FCC could impose content moderation policies on internet infrastructure providers like Starlink. The courtroom was packed. Journalists flanked both sides, scribbling, live blogging. Activists stared from the back rows, some with signs half hidden beneath coats. Musk's legal team sat just behind him, rigid and silent. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about power, control, and the First Amendment. Chief Justice Roberts looked on with measured detachment. Justice Sotomayor flipped through her notes. But all eyes, every camera, every phone, were waiting for one voice, Justice Amy Coney Barrett. She had said little during oral arguments, just cold observation, but now her gaze lifted, razor-sharp, unblinking, and locked on to Musk. "Mr. Musk," she said suddenly, her voice slicing through the silence like a gavel to glass. "You speak of constitutional overreach. You cite the founders. You invoke liberty. But answer me this. What happens when the infrastructure you control becomes more powerful than any government?" A gasp rippled through the chamber. Even Musk flinched. He opened his mouth, but she wasn't done. "You argue the FCC cannot regulate what you call the digital commons, but Starlink doesn't just provide access. It decides who gets to speak in the first place. Isn't that, in essence, a private form of censorship?" Barrett's tone was calm. Too calm. The kind of composure that comes before a hurricane. Musk straightened, lips twitching, not in a smile, but calculation. "With all due respect, Justice Barrett, the Constitution restrains the government, not private actors. If Starlink enables global communication, it is not the state. It is progress." Barrett leaned forward. "Progress without accountability is tyranny dressed in innovation." The courtroom froze. Somewhere in the back, a camera shutter clicked like a pistol. Musk didn't blink. "If the founders could have imagined space-based internet, I believe they would have defended it the same way they defended the printing press." Barrett looked down at her notes, then back up, piercing. "And yet the printing press was never owned by one man orbiting above the law." That was it. The line that exploded across headlines. The phrase that broke the internet. The courtroom, still humming with the tension Barrett had unleashed, felt like a war zone paused in silence. Elon Musk, who had always thrived in chaos, now found himself analyzing every millisecond of Barrett's challenge. There was no escaping the stakes now. This was no longer a hearing. It was a reckoning. Chief Justice John Roberts cleared his throat, breaking the standoff. "Mr. Musk, you may respond." Elon straightened his back and leaned into the mic. "Your Honor, I'm not here to defend a platform. I'm here to defend a principle. The idea that speech, even messy, uncomfortable speech, must be protected, especially when it challenges power." Barrett didn't flinch. "And yet you chose to amplify voices that knowingly manipulated elections, that incited violence." "There's a difference between discomfort and danger," Mr. Musk murmurs rippled across the room. Some reporters typed furiously. Others just watched, stunned. Musk paused, calculating. "I would argue, Justice Barrett, that the danger lies in centralized control of truth. The FCC is now playing arbiter of speech. Today it's political misinformation. Tomorrow it could be dissent." Justice Kagan leaned forward, voice like ice. "You make a compelling philosophical point, but the reality is, people died, Mr. Musk. January 6th wasn't a simulation." Musk didn't blink. "Nor was the lockdown of dissenting voices during a pandemic, or the silencing of journalists whose only crime was asking the wrong questions." Now that got the reaction he wanted. A visible shudder ran through the courtroom. Barrett's eyes narrowed. She knew exactly what he was doing. expanding the battlefield. And let me ask, Musk continued, this time locking eyes with Barrett, if a government agency staffed by unelected officials gets to decide what's disinformation and what's not, who checks them? Barrett fired back. That's why we're here, but I'm still waiting to hear how your version of freedom doesn't end in chaos. He smirked, not arrogantly, but knowingly. It's not about avoiding chaos. It's about choosing it over tyranny. Silence. Then Justice Alito spoke, his voice steady but cold. Mr. Musk, are you implying the FCC is tyrannical? No, Elon said, eyes burning. I'm implying that it has become a shield for tyranny disguised as safety. Gasps. Audible. Not from the public, but from the bench. Roberts raised a brow. You realize, Mr. Musk, that what you're saying could have consequences far beyond this courtroom. I hope it does. Cameras, allowed only in the overflow media room, caught the moment as it happened. The clips hit Twitter, YouTube, and cable news before the next word was spoken. Breaking. Elon Musk calls FCC a shield for tyranny during Supreme Court clash. Barrett exhaled deeply. This isn't just about Twitter anymore, is it? Musk nodded. Number. It's about the future of public discourse. You can't regulate truth without first claiming to own it. And that was it. That was the moment the court ceased being a chamber of neutral interpretation. It became an ideological battlefield. Behind the curtains, White House staff were already preparing emergency statements. Law professors scheduled emergency panels. Cable news anchors abandoned their scripts. The nation had expected a dry First Amendment case. Instead, they were witnessing the constitutional trial of the digital age. And it was only getting started. Outside the Supreme Court, a swarm of journalists had overtaken the steps. Protesters waved signs, some with Elon's face stylized as a hero, others with him drawn as a tyrant. The national split had never been clearer. Inside, the tension had mutated. No longer confined to Barrett's sharp challenges or Musk's defiant rhetoric, it was now systemic, seeping into every corner of the court like smoke before fire. Justice Sotomayor's voice, calm but cutting, broke the uneasy stillness. Mr. Musk, let's not pretend this is solely about free speech. You're a businessman. You bought a global platform. And within weeks, you reinstated voices banned for incitement. That's not neutrality. That's activism. Elon leaned forward. Your Honor, is free speech only valid when it's popular or when it's safe? Because the First Amendment makes no such distinction. Justice Gorsuch shifted in his seat. Mr. Musk, we're not questioning the existence of free speech. We're questioning whether you've created a system that abuses it. Musk didn't miss a beat. If I've done anything, it's forced us to confront what we actually believe about the First Amendment. Not what we say in lectures, but what we do when the speech offends, disrupts, or disagrees. Justice Barrett returned, her voice more measured now, almost introspective. Mr. Musk, let me ask you directly. If a government body flags content to a private company, asks, not orders, do you consider that censorship? He didn't blink. If the government asks, knowing that refusal brings retaliation, yes. If they ask, but fund you, regulate you, threaten you behind closed doors, that's not a request, that's coercion. A beat of silence. Roberts narrowed his eyes. You're saying the FCC, in flagging content, crossed a constitutional line. Musk nodded. Not just crossed it, they paved over it. That line hit hard. It traveled through the room, then to the press gallery, and exploded across digital screens. Elon Musk. The FCC didn't just cross the line, they paved over it. On MSNBC, a panel was already live. He's cornering the government with its own tools, one analyst said, or he's gaslighting an entire generation into rejecting institutional authority, replied another. Meanwhile, in Congress, senators were watching with grim expressions. Elizabeth Warren tweeted, "This isn't brave, it's reckless." Billionaires shouldn't get to rewrite constitutional boundaries. But Musk had already anticipated this storm. He pulled out a document, previously unsubmitted, and asked for permission to introduce it as evidence. Barrett's eyes narrowed. What is that? A set of internal FCC communications, emails, memos, redacted threats, all obtained legally under FOIA murmur. Then a hush. Barrett looked at Roberts. He gave the nod. She turned back to Musk. If these are authentic, you may have just shifted the course of this case. Elon placed the stack on the desk. They are. The clerk retrieved them. Justice Thomas, who had remained quiet until now, leaned toward the mic. We will recess for 90 minutes while we review the submitted material. The gavel fell. But no one moved, because everyone knew. When the court returned, it wouldn't just be Elon Musk on trial, it would be the system itself. When the court reconvened, it wasn't just the justices who returned with solemn faces, it was history itself walking back into the chamber. Justice Barrett was first to speak, but this time, her tone had changed. Less sharp, more deliberate. We have reviewed the documents submitted. They include internal FCC emails referencing cooperation through pressure, the phrase regulatory repercussions, and a direct quote from an unnamed official. They'll comply once they understand what's at stake. A silence fell like iron. She looked straight at Elon. Mr. Musk, this suggests more than coordination. It suggests coercion. If proven true, it would not just implicate the FCC, it could redefine the legal understanding of state influence over private platforms. Elon nodded. I didn't come here to expose the FCC. I came here because we're watching the birth of a digital surveillance state in real time, and most people are too afraid or too comfortable to speak up. Justice Sotomayor, brows furrowed, murmured, This court is not here to wage war on government institutions. Elon's voice was firm. No, but the First Amendment was. That line didn't just echo. It detonated. Outside the courtroom, media began shifting tone. On CNN, a constitutional scholar leaned into the mic. He's reframing the entire debate, not around himself, but around us, around whether liberty survives the algorithm. Justice Thomas cleared his throat. Let us be very clear. This case now concerns the threshold between governmental influence and unconstitutional overreach. What Musk has raised today may not just shape future legislation, it may determine how we define freedom in the digital age. In the gallery, you could see jaws clench, eyes widen. But then came the twist. A DOJ attorney, seated quietly until now, stood up, requesting an emergency motion to respond to the newly submitted evidence. Roberts narrowed his eyes. You may proceed briefly. The man spoke swiftly, calculated. Yes, certain individuals within the FCC made inappropriate communications, but the Department of Justice did not authorize coercion. If anything improper occurred, it was the result of rogue actors. Musk laughed, quiet, cynical. Rogue actors? That's the oldest play in the book. The government plays dumb when it's caught, but hyper-competent when it's in control. Barrett leaned forward. If the FCC overstepped and the DOJ allowed it, then we are faced with something far more dangerous than miscommunication. We are faced with intent. Suddenly, this was no longer a hearing. It was a reckoning. Outside, number free speech trial and number Musk versus government were trending worldwide. Protesters clashed. News anchors couldn't keep up. Law professors live-streamed commentary from their offices. And in that moment, America wasn't watching Elon Musk fight for his platform. It was watching itself, torn between the need for order and the price of freedom. Justice Roberts stood. We will issue a formal opinion in the coming weeks. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Elon didn't smile, didn't raise his fist. He simply stood, buttoned his suit, and looked at the gallery. He knew. He had forced the country into the mirror. Whether it liked what it saw, that was another story.